Moving to Italy sounds like a dream for many, and with the new Italian Digital Nomad Visa, there's a brand new pathway for doing just that. But with some confusing requirements, strict expectations, and bureaucratic hoops to jump through, is it really worth it? Well, I'm currently in the process of applying for Italy's Digital Nomad Visa myself. So in this video, I'm sharing how long it takes, some of the biggest challenges I faced so far, and how I'm preparing for my upcoming visa appointment right here in the Chicago consulate. But first, some background. I have been wanting to move to Italy since 2012 when I first traveled there. I made an attempt back then, but ended up living in Madrid, Spain for a year instead. I've been to Italy again and again over the years, and that feeling, that pull that I have to move there, specifically to move to Rome, has never gone away all of these years. But you know how it goes. Life gets in the way, work, relationships, responsibilities, and the dream slips further and further away from ever becoming reality. When Italy first announced its digital nomad visa back in 2022, I saw that path open up again to turn my dream into reality. But then for a couple years, nothing launched. The DNV finally launched last April 2024, and it wasn't until January of this year that I went from dream to committed decision. Like, I'm going to actually make this happen. And I did a video about that I will link here. But I decided I was going to pursue this opportunity, and I'm going to pursue it now. It's basically been an active work in progress since then, and now here we are in July, and my consulate appointment to formally apply for this visa is next month. My hope is to get approved and actually make this move in October or November. Basically a full year from decision to the move. So if this is something you're also considering, is applying for the Italian Digital Nomad Visa, you want to give yourself plenty of runway, decide when you'd ideally like to move, and then work backwards from then. And I'll tell you why. There are a few reasons why it takes this long, and it might not take everyone as long as it's taking me, but at least 5 to 6 months of solid effort, I would say. And here's why. First of all, actually securing the visa with your local consulate, at least if you're in the US, from mostly what I'm hearing, is really a game of chance. You'll need to check for available appointments on your consulate's website every day. Around 5:30 or 6 p.m. Central Time is when you'll want to log in or start trying to log into the platform to secure an appointment. That's midnight in Rome, and apparently that's when they release or open new appointment slots. I'm hearing people are really struggling to even secure one of these appointments right now, and when you do secure it, it's often months away. So my appointment is in August. I secured that appointment in April. Another reason you'll want to give yourself plenty of time, so it's actually beneficial that your consulate appointment ends up being a few months out, is because you do need time to gather all of the paperwork, all of the materials you're going to need to make your case when you go to that appointment to say, hey, I qualify for this visa. I hope you agree with me. Can you approve my visa? Some of these items you'll have more readily available, like your tax returns, invoices, income statements, work contract if you're employed. I'm applying as self-employed. Other documents require translation, notarization, or time to generate proof of equivalency. For example, to meet the highly skilled worker requirement, I needed to submit my degree through the Diplome website to get a CIMEA or CIMEA. Basically, I needed to get a guarantee or a certificate of equivalency that my degrees that I've earned here in the US will translate over to Italy, or for them to understand what the equivalent is of that degree in Italy. For this process, I had to reach back out to my universities and request transcripts, which then I had to send over. I had to fill out an application online. I had to pay a fee. Then I had to wait for them to process it. Luckily, mine were processed very quickly, but for some folks, it's taken a couple months. So you just don't know, and so having a runway of time is super important. Also, there are little things like for this process that I'm talking about with the transcripts and getting the degree of equivalency, you can only submit a certain amount per day. And I don't mean you individually. I mean, they only accept through their platform a certain number of requests per day. So you have to log in at 8 a.m. Central and try to be one of the first ones to get your request in. As many days as it takes you to do that and to get a request in, that's another factor where time matters and you want it on your side. 2 more reasons why this visa takes a little bit of time. Now, when I first started looking into can I apply for this visa, one of the requirements stood out to me and stands out to many people as, is this even possible? Are they really asking for this? And how the heck do we do this? And that requirement is you need to have a minimum 12-month lease, registered lease, secured before you walk into your consulate for that visa appointment. And you need to show them, look, I already have an apartment lined up. Airbnbs will not work. Hotels will not work. I'm staying with my friend or a family I know there. Won't work. You need to have a 12-month registered lease if you are applying from the US. So I'm going to come back and talk about the apartment search for me personally and a little more broadly in a moment. But I want to give you the other reason that this visa takes a little bit of time to secure and you'll want to plan in advance is that once you go in for your consulate appointment, they technically have 90 days, I believe. They legally have 90 days in which they need to get back to you. So some people I've heard, actually a couple folks within the US who have gotten their visa on the spot, which is a little bit unusual, but that is happening, whereas other people have their flights already booked for when they think they're going to move, but they haven't gotten their visa mailed back to them yet. They still don't know if they're approved. So just so you know, legally they have 90 days to process the request. There is a lot that you can be doing while you wait for your consulate appointment. One of the very first things I did to prepare for this potential move, actually, I started doing this even before I made the decision that this was going to be the year that I was going to move. Initially, I thought, I don't know when I'm actually going to move. I don't know when this is going to be a reality for me, but let me start taking steps anyway. The first step I took was in January, I started taking Italian classes. I started by taking the most basic level 1. I've never studied Italian before through a school here in Chicago, but all of our lessons were done virtually via Zoom for 2 hours a week, 2 hours every Friday evening for about 20 weeks with a little bit of a break in between because I did basic 1 and basic 2. And that's how I got started. And then that school went on summer break and I was starting to feel really antsy because in a group setting, obviously you're not learning as quickly because everyone is at a different level. You're not getting individualized attention. And then here we are going on break, plus sitting at my desk for 2 hours at the end of the week every Friday evening was just not ideal learning conditions for me. So my teacher encouraged me to sign up for one-to-one lessons, but they were pretty expensive through that school. And so I wanted to explore other options. I kept hearing about Preply. This is not at all sponsored yet, maybe in the future, but I have been taking Preply one-on-one courses. The tutor I found I really love, or the teacher I should say, her name is Claudia, and she actually lives in Rome and she has a limited level of English. So that forces me to really listen a lot in Italian and speak a lot in Italian. And I'm currently meeting with her twice a week, so 2 hours a week, Monday and Thursday mornings, and it's working for me. She gives me homework in between. She shows up super prepared. So anyway, this is one of the things that I'm doing to prepare for this potential move. And if you're considering it too, this is something that you can and should start as early as possible, even if you don't expect to move within the next year. If you want to try Preply yourself, I highly recommend it. There are teachers at all different price points. They set their own rates, so you can find what works for you and pick a schedule that works for you. I'm putting my QR code for you to sign up through my link on the screen, and I'll also put the link in the description below. The other thing you can do as you wait for your consulate appointment to approach is mentally and emotionally prepare. You'll also need to prepare professionally and financially. This includes finding and consulting with a commercialista, which is an Italian accountant, to understand what tax planning practices you need to implement. This is something I'm still currently taking consultations with different commercialistas based in Rome to find the right fit for me. Professionally, if you are a remote worker that is employed by a company full-time that is allowing you to move to Italy on this visa, you'll need to get some documentation based on that. So all of the requirements, if you were to ask me, what are all of the requirements? Where do I find them? I will link that down below. But what you really want to do is look up Italian Digital Nomad Visa Houston Consulate or Chicago Consulate, or, wherever your consulate is, because it does vary a little bit based on which consulate you're going to be going through based on where you reside. So pull up the ones for you specifically, but I'll try to find and post a general version in the description below. For me, as a self-employed person, I am already starting to test out how does my professional network extend into Europe. And I'm just laying the groundwork to keep my business going strong. And of course, spend quality time with your loved ones as much as you can before this potential move abroad. Obviously, this is a very involved process. I keep joking. Anyone who asks me how it's going, I'm like, well, you really have to want it. Well, they really put you through the ringer to make sure that you have what it takes to get to and then make it in Italy. And I am always doing my best to maintain a positive attitude. You know, this is not something that is owed to me by any means for any reason. It's something that I actively want to pursue in the direction of my dreams. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't feel stressful or frustrating or hopeless or disheartening at times, because there are some challenges that I have run into. The biggest challenge for me so far has been what I mentioned earlier about securing an apartment. That initial requirement that stood out to me as how is this going to happen is still a question for me, although I'm obviously taking steps to work toward it. But let's talk about it because that's a big one. Initially, some of my thoughts were trying to figure out how this would work. Would I have to just commit to a place sight unseen and pay to secure a unbreakable 12-month lease and be out that money either way, whether or not I was even approved for the visa? I also assumed I would need to go be in person to do the apartment hunting, but how long does it take? The idea of being away from my loved ones, from my family, and also from some work responsibilities here in the States for a couple months while I tried to apartment hunt in the same year that I'm already planning to make a full-time move abroad also wasn't sitting right with me. But it turns out there is a way to apartment hunt remotely. I first hired a company that offered a service where they pair you with one of their agents and they help you look for apartments on the ground. But unfortunately, I didn't have the most positive experience and they were not ultimately able to help me. Thankfully, they did refund me the money that I had spent with them to hire them to provide the service. But what they could not give me back was time. I thought my only option then was to hire a different agency similar to that one that also offered the same service, but this agency was significantly more expensive. So I went to the Facebook group. There's a Facebook group, Digital Nomad Visa Italy, something like that, where a lot of other people who are applying for this visa, we're all in there together. We're all asking our questions and helping each other out. I posted in that group basically my experience. I hired this company. They refunded me before I spend literally thousands with this other company. Does anyone have any other recommendations who has virtually apartment hunted and found one in Rome? I was connected with someone else on the ground who I have been working with for probably the last month or so who is helping me out. However, Rome's rental market is incredibly competitive. There was a place we just saw the other day. As soon as it went on the market, this person I'm working with gave them a call and they said, there's already someone willing to put in a proposal on it without even seeing the place. A place comes onto the market and it's gone like that. Add to this that I'm self-employed. There are a lot of places that don't want to rent to people who are self-employed. I think I would find something similar in the US as well. I get it, but that makes it even more difficult. A lot of places have rules of either they will only rent to students or they will only rent to non-students. So you have to navigate that. And then the other big thing that I'm running into is timing. Perhaps I am looking too early for my desired move dates, but I don't know how do I work around this, right? Because my consulate appointment is next month, and a lot of these places say available immediately, and clearly they're gone as soon as they're listed. And so me looking for October, November, the few of those that come up are also immediately taken, so that's still happening. And there just aren't as many of those, and many places want a lease that starts right away. They want you to be able to get in there, but I don't even have my appointment until August. So at this point, I am also running into the fact that you may have heard that in Italy, there's sort of a big shutdown in August. Ferragosto happens primarily on August 15th, but in a lot of ways for the entire month and maybe even bleeding into September, things really kind of halt to a stop. In the past couple weeks, I've started to even notice that where there just aren't many new listings even being put up on the platforms that I'm using. So what does that mean for me? And the fact that this is a requirement and I have my visa appointment next month. Well, it means that I am going to keep my appointment, but there is a chance that I will walk in without having an apartment lined up. I know of one person doing this successfully, but not in Chicago. She did this in Houston. I will go in with all of my other application components, ideally being optimized and perfect and really easy to say yes to. And I will go in with probably some sort of a notarized letter and proof from the agent that I'm working with that I am working with someone to secure an apartment. My hope is that they will conditionally approve me, that they will say, okay, all of this looks good, but your application is on hold until you secure a lease. Once you do, email that to us and then we'll process it. So I don't know, but I do know that with how hard it is for people to get an appointment these days, completely canceling it or rescheduling it really doesn't feel like an option. I think I need to stick to this. What's going to happen? I don't know, but stay tuned and I'll update you. I do know others who have applied for this visa have gone in person to do the apartment search. In Italy, that face-to-face connection really matters. Also, others have looked in maybe smaller towns, not the most competitive, busiest town in Italy, but my heart is set on Rome. So they may also have an easier time that way. Others have been going back and forth to Italy and have established some sort of a relationship. Maybe they have a place that they usually stay and they reached out to that person and said, hey, can we consider a longer term lease? Another big question mark with this piece in particular is, okay, what happens when you've secured your lease, you go in for your consulate appointment, and for whatever reason, maybe you're denied, which has happened to some people. Your application is rejected. Now what? Can you get out of the lease? So a lot of these leases have 3-month out clauses. In that case, what I would do and what I would recommend someone do is cancel that lease, but it's a 3-month out clause. So you're still responsible for 3 months of rent on it. However much is left on it, maybe it's a full 3 months, depending on your timing, go to Italy, because at least as a US citizen, you can be there in Italy for 90 days on a tourist visa. You could do that and then come back to the drawing board to figure out your pathway to Italy for longer term. That's a lot of me talking about the apartment hunting requirement and apartment hunting part of all of this. It was the biggest question mark for me. It is the biggest challenge that I'm currently facing, so hopefully it helps you too, and even more hopefully, I'll have a positive update for you after my visa appointment next month on what happened. Was I able to get an apartment on time? Or if not, did they accept my application based on the condition that I will get one? I will update you on that. Subscribe so you don't miss that when I post it. Another challenge I ran into earlier on when first starting to pursue this visa was that I had 2 separate professional relocation companies, actually the same ones that I used or almost used for my housing search, tell me that it was unlikely I was going to be approved based on the information that I had to share with them at the time. It was very disappointing and disheartening to hear after I went from making the decision. I'm like, this has been my dream for so long. All right, I'm going to go after it. I'm going to make this happen. And then I had 2 people who run agencies around this, who this is their job and expertise, is relocating from anywhere to Italy, tell me, no, this isn't going to happen for you based on what they knew about my portfolio back then, right? Yeah, that wasn't fun, but I game planned and I decided, well, I'm going to apply anyway. The reason that I even consulted with them is initially I was feeling so much anticipatory overwhelm at even applying for the visa and doing all of the things that I thought maybe I should just hire someone who knows what they're doing. But then thanks to the Facebook group I mentioned and some other research, I saw most people are fully capable of applying for this visa on their own, so I can do it too. And I ultimately decided not to hire them also because they didn't believe in my approach. So why would I hire you? I thought, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to try anyway, and we'll get it done. So here's what was happening. The backstory on this is I'm self-employed. Italy has a certain income requirement for you to be able to make this move. And I thought, great, between my 2 businesses, I make enough and can sustain myself, and I can move there and I can show them, look, I earn steady income between these 2 businesses. As a self-employed person, there is some inconsistency because I don't know where and when my next contract will come through all the time, right? At the time, I had one of my businesses has some sort of recurring monthly income, so I was going to show that. And then the other one, I had 1 contract for it. My consulting side of my job. I had 1 contract lined up at the time, and I was anticipating a few more, but I didn't know for sure if they were going to come through and by when. And for that reason, they both told me, you need to be a highly skilled worker. You need to focus on your consulting business and not your, essentially this, not your travel, blogging, and brand. And you're going to need to line up a few more contracts to be considered, which is a fair evaluation. I took this feedback to that Facebook group and put it in there. And I said, anyone have any thoughts for me? Because I'm going to do this anyway, but I'd love to hear. And thankfully, someone in that group reminded me that this visa is still so new and it's so case by case in terms of who is approved and what the criteria is based on what consulate you're going through that no one can definitively say who is going to get approved or not. And that was all I needed to give me my confidence and my hope back as I game planned for how I was going to make a case for both of my businesses and how both require me to be highly skilled. Thankfully, since that conversation, I have secured a few other contracts for the consulting side of my business. So I also do leadership development, consulting, facilitation, team level coaching. I've fortunately been able to secure some additional contracts on that side. So I will lead with that, but I'm also going to still bring in my travel business as well. Ultimately, what I want you to take from this anecdote of mine and this challenge is what I've heard and what I now see to be true is that so much of this, when you go in for that brief 20-minute consulate appointment, is what is the story that you're telling? How are you proving, one, that you have the funds, two, that you're a highly skilled professional, three, that you know how to prepare and that you can show up and be over-prepared for this. Essentially, that you are committed and dedicated to making this happen. So, I still have a ways to go. Right now, I am focused on compiling all of the documents and all of the copies of documents and all the information that I need and basically creating my binder or my kit of what am I going to walk into the consulate and hand over for my appointment. In between all of that, I'm apartment hunting. And in between all of that, I am just reminding myself that everything is going to work out the way that it's meant to work out. And we'll go from there, right? There are the things that I can control, and I'm doing my best on all of that. I'm putting my best foot forward, doing all of the prep that I can. And then there's the part that I can't control, is what is this person going to see and decide? Who am I going to meet with that day? What kind of mood are they going to be in? I don't know, but I don't have any control over that. So why bother, right? I can do what I can to show up the most prepared that I possibly can, and then it's on God and we'll see. Will I find a place? Will I qualify for this visa in the end? If I don't get approved, what then? Will I apply for a different visa, like the study visa? Will I move somewhere else instead? Will I move back into the city of Chicago and out of the suburbs? Well, who can say? Only time will tell, so subscribe to stay tuned. Oh, and wish me luck.